Hi, welcome to the Hungarian Living podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Szabo. We're on a mission to help you maintain a meaningful connection to Hungarian culture and heritage in a variety of ways. We'll talk about food, travel, history, music, language, genealogy, and more. So whether you know a little or a lot about being Hungarian, this is the place to be. Hey everyone, it's Liz with the Hungarian Living podcast. I am sure I seriously underestimated how much effort and energy the Hungarian Heritage Expo takes, and to host 3 in a matter of 13 months is just a little bit crazy. So I do apologize that things have been inconsistent in the podcast department. I do feel like things are pretty great in the Hungarian Heritage Expo department. So you'll just have to take the good with the better. So it's already August, which is crazy to me, but here we are. And for this episode, we're going to talk about my mom, Elizabeth Szabo, and mainly because it's her birthday month. But if you knew my mom, you knew she was amazing. But let me tell you, as every year goes by, I realize she is even more amazinger than I ever thought. And I know that's really not a word, but I'm telling you, she was amazing. She was passionate about her Hungarian heritage and expressed it in so many ways. Of course, we had Hungarian food at home, and we regularly heard the language, but we were also familiar with Hungarian folk art and traditions, all kinds of things. And as her children started getting married, we each happened to pick non Hungarian spouses, and so she knew that someday, if she had grandchildren, they would be only 50% Hungarian. And then when those grandchildren started having children, the percentages would likely be even less than that. And she knew other people were having the same challenge. How do you preserve some elements of Hungarian heritage and culture in your family, even as other delightful and valuable ethnicities start joining the family? After all, you can and should be excited about all of it. But how do you help the Hungarian piece of things to be more memorable in the family? Even when my brothers and I were quite young, my mom was translating Hungarian folktales into English. I have all of her files, which means I have several boxes full of pieces she wrote and submitted for publication. She had at least one thing published in Highlights for Children, and she had other things published in smaller publications. Most things seemed to focus on the child aged 6 to 10 years old. There were short stories as well as some short biographies of famous people, mostly famous Americans, and they seemed designed for that 3rd through 5th grade age. But her heart was all about this Hungarian folktale project. Her goal was to publish a book of them. And now that her great grandchildren are at a great age to listen to short stories, we are going to add these to our Hungarian Living podcast as a way to honor her and share her heart with you. So, over the next year, that is what we will be doing in addition to more regular podcast episodes. If you didn't get a chance to meet my mom, these translated Hungarian folktales will help you take a peek into her heart. King Matthias and the Young Village Mayor. On the edge of the village of Kessi, King Matthias saw a man walking toward him, leading a calf. It looks like the mayor, thought the king to himself. When the man got a little closer, King Matthias greeted him. Good morning, my friend, called out the king. I was just coming to see you and find out how things are in your village. Things are very mixed up these days, your majesty, replied the man. You are the mayor. Why don't you straighten things out? Asked the king. Good king, began the man. I am no longer the mayor. My son is now the mayor. Tell me, how did all this happen? Asked the king, putting his arm around the man's shoulder. My son feels old men are not suited to be mayors. But you are not old, insisted the king. To my son, I seem like a very old man. He insisted his youth and energy made him a much better mayor than I. So I thought perhaps it would be wise to give him the chance to prove himself. Good idea, replied the king. I think I'll go to the village hall to see him and ask how things are coming along. When the king arrived at the village hall, he saw that the mayor was very young indeed. A man as young as you is not suited to be mayor, the king told him. Your Majesty, replied the young man, look at me. I am young and handsome, intelligent and strong. I am able to do any task under the sun, he said, showing the king his muscles. Good, said the king. Then if you can do anything under the sun, you will surely be able to do what I ask of you. Of course, said the young mayor confidently. On my return to the castle, I will stop here at this village again, began the king. And you must bring to this hall 30 wolves, 40 wise men, and 70 simpletons, ordered the king. The young mayor on his way home thought and thought about how he would be able to do this thing the king had asked of him. He became troubled, for he could see no answer. That night at supper he didn't even eat, for he was so bothered by the problem. His father could see that the young mayor was upset. What is the trouble, my young son? Asked the father, placing a hand on his shoulder. You are the village mayor. You should not have problems so great that you cannot solve them. But father, King Matthias has told me that before he returns to our village again, I must be able to bring together at his command 30 wolves, 40 wise men, and 70 simpletons. And if I should fail to bring them, he will not let me be the mayor of the village any longer. That should not be such a problem to such a bright young man like yourself, answered his father. But how can I ever do what the king has commanded? Now that you are mayor, my son, it is your problem to solve, replied his father. But secretly the father went out to get the answer for the king by himself. He went out to all the neighboring villages to gather 30 men, each of them 30 years old. Then he gathered together 40 men, and each was 40 years old. Last of all, he gathered together 70 men, and each was 70 years old. Then he returned home. When King Matthias returned, he asked the young mayor to bring to the village the 30 wolves, 40 wise men, and 70 simpletons. The young mayor shook his head sadly and said, I cannot, your majesty. Quickly his father spoke up. Your majesty, I will be the one to give you the answer, for I have gathered them all. And where are they? Asked the king. Right here, said the young mayor's father, as he called in the men he had gathered. 30 young men, all 30 years old, and strong as wolves, every one. Good, said the king, nodding his head. And here are 39 men. I am the 40th. Since we are all 40 years old, we are neither too young nor too old to be wise. We are certainly the wisest men here, continued. The king nodded his head again. And, said the man as he pointed to the group of old men, here are the 70 men, all 70 years old. Since they are so very old, their minds have become weak, and they are simpletons. Behold, said the good King Matthias, the father has more brains than the son. The king turned to his father and said, You will be the mayor here, and your son shall hold office no longer. Then, turning to the young man, he said, I see it is your father who is the clever one, not you. It is he, not you, that is suited to be the mayor of this village. The young son shook hands with his father and smiled. The king is right, my father. The king placed his hand on the young man's shoulder and spoke to him. You will gain more by using your mind and your heart than by using your muscles and force. The end. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Hungarian Living podcast, please share it with someone you know who loves their Hungarian heritage. And sign up for our newsletter and catalog at HungarianLiving.com. There's a link in the show notes. Special thanks to Stephen Chichek and the Animal Cannibals for the show music.